Welcome, dear listeners. I am Merve Akta. Today, our guest is Kevser Ertem, and together we will bridge history from the past to the present. Our agenda is how peaceful history can be approached on both local and global scales. We'll explore questions such as, can new methods be developed to relate local historical events to global historical events? Welcome, Mrs. Kevser Ertem.
Thank you.
We firstly would like to thank you for your participation.
I thank you for this kind invitation.
So, let's start with our first question. In your opinion, what are the crucial aspects to consider when dealing with historical events?
Ortega Gasset once said, man has no nature, only history. In other words, human essence comes from the time they live in. I believe in evaluating this, it's essential to recognize that history is a common product of nations. Approaching history objectively is crucial when discussing certain topics. To understand historical events, one must consider the conditions of the time they occurred. By doing so, the subject of history, which is people and their actions, can become understandable.
Okay, how can local history be related to broader historical events at the European or global level? Can you explain?
Firstly, I'd like to respond to this question by explaining local history. Local history is the history of the place, family, neighborhood, village, and city one lives in. In other words, local history is the story of what is local. Local history has gained importance in historical research in recent years, and its contributions to history education are frequently emphasized. Through local history, the human element is included in history. It's a type of history that helps establish connections between how societies are involved in or affected by significant national events and broader topics in history. Local events are often connected to broader historical events. For example, a local historical event can have an impact on a country's, Europe's, or the world's general history. Additionally, local history studies can assist in better understanding general historical events. One of the significant objectives of history education in schools is to instill a sense of the past that allows students to understand the time they live in. This goal cannot be achieved in history lessons that present general historical events as an intense accumulation of information about states and wars. Students who can directly access historical sources in their environment find a piece of themselves in historical events and conduct research like a historian will have an easier time understanding general history.
As far as I know, you have researched local historical events in Turkey. To further inform our listeners, could you provide an example of a local historical event in Turkey that also influenced European history?
Of course. The occupation of Izmir by Greek forces and the subsequent Great Fire of Izmir is one of the best examples for this topic in my opinion. First, let me provide some information about Smyrna during that period to better understand the situation. The city of Izmir, located in western Anatolia, has been one of the most important cities in Anatolia since ancient Greece. It hosted Turks, Greeks, French citizens engaged in trade, known as Levantines, Armenians, and Italians, making it a cosmopolitan city. The peaceful coexistence of these communities influenced each other's cultures. We can see this clearly in their cuisine, daily life, and historic buildings, feeling the shared heritage that emerged. However, some historical developments at the beginning of the 20th century greatly damaged this rich structure in Izmir. During the occupation of Anatolia after World War I, this cultural city was occupied by the Greeks on May 15, 1919. The Greek army lost its struggle in 1922 and left Izmir on September 9. A few days later, this beautiful city was virtually reduced to ashes in a massive fire, with 2/3 of it burned. The disaster on September 13, 1922 may seem like a local event. Still, it became an event that affected not only Turkish society, but also countries such as Greece, England, the United States, France, and Italy, as it occurred in the final days of the 3-year-long Turkish-Greek conflicts in Anatolia following World War I. The Great Fire of Smyrna, as it is globally known, posed a threat to the future of the people living here, both in cultural and architectural terms.
As we mentioned at the beginning of our program, what are your thoughts on the narrative of peaceful history?
In the UNESCO Convention, it is stated, "Wars begin in the minds of men." It is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace must be constructed. In other words, wars are not just won or lost on battlefields. It is also a struggle of the mind. Before judging each other, nations must learn to look at events from each other's perspectives. Societies should be able to establish empathy towards one another.
Well, in the framework of a peaceful historical narrative, how can the Great Fire of Izmir, which impacted many communities but is also a local historical event, be examined in a new way? Do you have any studies on this topic?
Today, I believe that rather than assigning blame for the fire to specific groups, we should adopt and guide a peaceful historical understanding that fosters intercultural harmony, friendship, and cooperation. In this context, based on local history research, we can closely examine the contribution of different cultures to the richness of local history and understand that people we may label as others are part of a shared heritage. We have a study on the subject that we have prepared by using the digital storytelling technique as a new method in history education. Using the possibilities of technology, thanks to the digital storytelling technique, students can establish a concrete connection between the past and the present, between the local, the national, and the transnational historical events. Our research on artificial intelligence technology and creative drama technique is included in the digital storytelling technique. AI has become a crucial figure in transforming education, providing personalized learning environments, enriching teaching processes, concretizing knowledge, and contributing to students' processes of creating knowledge. AI can make history education more engaging, aiding in better comprehension of topics. However, it's important not to overlook the significant challenges that AI technology brings. For instance, AI-generated images or videos can distort any historical event, and precautions must be taken against this distortion in the present day. In our project, we use the drama method to aim for empathy towards the other. Drama is an essential tool in history education. We prepared this creative drama project, which we will feature in this podcast as follows. First, through a literature review on the Great Fire of Izmir, we examined various academic studies, including official reports from witnesses of the 1922 fire, academic works on local and international newspaper coverage, statements from witnesses and victims, and oral history studies conducted with these individuals. From this information, we attempted to determine which neighborhoods the fire started in, which communities were most affected, the efforts made to extinguish the fire, and how this disaster with an unknown source filled historical biases. Based on our research, we used artificial intelligence technologies from websites such as Canva, Photor, Voice AI, and Platokon to create AI-generated images of the Izmir fire. Using text data, we identified about the event, such as neighborhood names, names of Izmir's communities, names of historical buildings that burned, and the names of witnesses to the event. We created voice recordings for the creative drama characters and transformed them into talking images, adding subtitles. In our terms, we turned it into an animated drama podcast. We believe that our work will also serve individuals with visual and hearing impairments among disadvantaged groups. Starting from the Izmir fire on September 13, 1922, with our study, we aim to open a peaceful window to the resolution of issues between Turkey and Greece by extracting lessons from these local events. Political discussions continue between Turkey and Greece on various issues today. The important thing is for states to approach these issues with a peaceful historical narrative and build a constructive future for future generations.
Then, if it is suitable for you, we would like to include your work in our program.
Sure, we will be very pleased.
Ah, my dearest Izmir, you look like a bride with your proverbial beauty. Now you are nothing more than a handful of ash, a bride of the blaze.
Sad, isn't it?
Absolutely heart-wrenching. Izmir was the most peculiar city of these lands. The blaze of Izmir is scorching my heart. How long will it take to get rid of the rubbles of the entirety of Izmir, I wonder?
It is not something that can be done with this. Thousands of people have lost their homes. I assume that more than 25,000 houses have burned to ashes.
It's really bad. What will all these people do without their homes?
It's a crime that affects the culprits as well. Everybody received their chastisement.
The foreign media is blaming the Turks, but everyone knows that this is not the case. I believe that it's the Greeks and the Armenians to blame. This was talked about in an article I was reading. Now, if you will excuse me, I will read this part from Illustrations. Our journalist that goes by the name G. Erkol has published his reports from Izmir on 13th of September 1922, the day which the Great Fire had started. Erkol has written these exact statements in his report. Around 2 p.m., a dense cloud of smoke was rising from the Armenian neighborhood, but the fire wasn't spreading, and the fire had a tendency to be extinguished. Nevertheless, the dock was filled with people who were panicking. An American ferry, in front of the consulate of the United States of America, had to move away from the dock because the people were throwing themselves into the sea to get on the ferry. And at that moment, 2 more fires started in the Armenian neighborhood. The situation got serious because the fire coming from the south made its way to the French neighborhood. Suddenly, gunshots and explosions could be heard in the distance. The Armenians, who chose to die instead of living under Turkish occupation, scorched their homes and began fighting the Turkish soldiers. Shells were exploding with brutal noises. It was 9 p.m. Nighttime had arrived before we had even realized. The sky had turned into a gigantic cloud of blaze. And there is this one other thing from Le Matin. On September 23rd, the report about the fire from the correspondent in Izmir stated that the fire broke out. According to the personal investigation provoked by the Armenians, the fire started before the Armenians left their neighborhood. The plunder that followed is the work of the unemployed and the vagabonds who followed the Turks, regardless of religion or nationality. See, it does prove my point.
I think the same. The Armenians began searching the city and fighting the Turkish soldiers instead of living under their occupation. I forgot to introduce myself, monsieur. My name is André, a French merchant who grew up in Izmir. I was in Istanbul when the fire started. I returned to Izmir after hearing the news. I witnessed the beginning of the fire and the period after that.
Pleased to meet you. My name is Yusuf. I'm also a merchant. I was in Leeds, Britain, before the fire started. I was making preparations to return to Izmir. After reading the letter my sister-in-law sent me, I returned to Izmir on the 17th of September. And honestly, I did not expect the scenery this horrendous.
Do not lose hope. Although they serve their citizens, British ships and other aid ships come to support people for homes.
The British? I have already told you that I was in Britain before the fire started. I had a close relationship with the British media. My wife sent a letter to the British media after seeing the letters from her sister. She expressed her views on the topic and I applied for the letter to be published. But it was not published. Look at this newspaper. 21st of September 1922, Western Daily Press. The city was scorched by the Turks. What about the letter we had written?
Gentlemen, I beg your pardon. However, I was eavesdropping a little. Are you two talking about a letter of Sarah Hassan?
Yeah, where did you learn about it?
Here, you must be talking about the letter she sent to Yorkshire.
Let's see. Sir, I read your news about the war in Anatolia with a great interest. According to you, Kemal Pasha's soldiers plundered and massacred the Greeks and the Armenians and took a bad turn with the Izmir fire. It's very hard to believe that the Turks set fire to their property while capturing their beloved Izmir. It is more likely to believe that the Greeks and the Armenians started the fire to tarnish the reputation of the Turks. That indeed is the letter she happened to send. And you being?
Let me introduce myself, gentlemen. My name is Charles. This is the first time I have been in Izmir in my entire life. I am a journalist from London. With the help of British supply ships, I came to Izmir to object to research. I had your name after I saw your wife's letter in the newspaper. I was looking forward to meeting a Turk who is keeping close track of the British media. God's divine power made us run to each other.
I didn't know that the letter was published.
I have exactly this. I tried to contact you for an interview before I came to Izmir, but you have lost your contact with the media. The news arrived here later than usual.
Oh, I see. What about the others?
I'm here for that. Are there any chance in the published letter?
Nope, it's the exact same.
That's the revolution of the etiquette of journalism, a great step in the name of Yorkshire.
Gentlemen, the fact that we managed to get on the same path is frankly peculiar.
We are not on the same path yet. Even though this letter is a great step, there still exists the fact that the British take sides while making the news.
Have you witnessed the fire, sir?
Oh well, no, I was in Leeds back then.
Do you have an opinion on how the fire could have started, or are there any witnesses?
I don't know about him, but I shouldn't have a thief this to say.
Plebeian are you?
Let me introduce myself to you. My name is Matteo. I live in Istanbul. I'm an Italian doctor. I came here because of a friend's invitation. After the invasion of Izmir, some diseases have formed up due to the contaminated water. I was glad to return to my homeland, but after the fire started, there was a sudden need for doctors, so I stayed here instead. I have witnessed the way the fire started, and I can surely say that those getting blamed for it is indeed wrong.
Sir, why should we trust your words on how the fire started, knowing that it was expressed in the press, especially in the article published in Al Idea Nacional on September 14. Fever dreams of privileged fatigue of armies, oil and mines. Goodbye chemical monopolies, division zones, and it's now necessary to wake up from the dream of being part of Venice and Genoa and make an argument with Turkey on equal terms. So it would be hard to trust you.
At the beginning of the World War, many states had ambitions over the Ottoman Empire. As a result, this land is now the Duke's property, and we have given up on these ambitions. Coming to our main topic, we are people from 4 different nations here, and traces of the fire are still before our eyes. Blaming or defending anyone has nothing to gain from me or any of us. As a doctor, I'm here to heal people. If you want to beg him for to join us, you should listen to my verse.
Alright then, tell me about what you have witnessed.
Before I start, I will kindly request for you to listen to me without interrupting my speech. I will accept that Izmir was the interest of the Italians from the beginning, and maybe that was the reason why I was so keen on being in these lands. From the observations I have made since I came here, I did easily say that these lands contain various cultural varieties from various nations, and these lands did not deserve what they had suffered. During the period in which I was Istanbul by thought of the news about the occupation of Izmir. Another observation of mine is the fact that the damage the Greek environment had caused by retreating was mostly ignored by the American and British media. While we to observe it dully, the city was worried about the same situation happening in Izmir. On the 8th of September, we heard about the thousands of beloved soldiers escaping to the city. The soldiers of Mustafa Kemal were treating the people firstly. The Turkish planes were dropped notices that guaranteed our safety. And because of that, it becomes impossible to believe that this is a fire of revenge and that the Turks were deleted. Excluding a couple of raids, the people were continuing their business in the bazaar. For that matter, some of the Greek forces who hadn't yet the city were still showing resistance. The fire started in the Greek Iranian neighborhoods. People who witnessed this type of the fire stated that the fire broke out in a neighborhood named Basmaya. It spread to the churches, then grew even further. The same sentences were written all over the newspapers every following day. But the panic state of the Armenians, then the Greeks were painful and unsustainable. They were unable to reach the victims. People who lost their families were running to the port and taking shelter in import ships. For it was then saving people's lives, contributing to extinguishing the fire by circulating burning data. But the pain that happened was so great that I don't believe anyone could have given him such great power. Considering the activities of the great people in other cities, I think that this is an option carried out by Greek group.
I can understand the things you have told me. I do not think there is anybody who doesn't know the fact that the Greeks are scorching everywhere while they are retreating. And there is this statement of the Turkish commanders who clearly said that they would not hurt a soul unless there was retaliation.
Do you think that the Turkish commanders had any effect on the fire spreading this much? Don't you think that they have made a lot of things?
Which commanders, sir? The commanders that gave their all to rescue Izmir from the occupations?
The effect of the wind on the fire spreading seems like a bigger disaster.
This is not a topic you can be emotional about.
Absolutely.
I'm just saying that the chances of the commanders letting a few things slide are pretty low.
Monsieur, the thing you have told me seems rational to me. The culprit in question may be that retreating Greeks.
Sorry for interrupting, but I firmly believe that you are wrong.
Dear God, are we starting over again?
No, never. Please continue, sir.
You are wrong, because when the fire started, Greek soldiers had already withdrawn from the region. The resisting groups were in the southwest of Izmir. If the Greeks had started the fire, only the southwestern part would have burned. However, the fire started simultaneously in the north of the city. Perhaps the Greeks may be responsible for the destruction in different regions. But the Izmir fire cannot be attributed to this. Izmir plays an important part in our cultural heritage. How can one burn their own culture down, turn into ashes?
The Greeks had already withdrawn their forces from the burned areas. Even though the fire broke out in different regions, how do we not know that it was not the Greek army that provoked it? Moreover, can you say that they did not contribute to the fire growing so much, like at all?
Sir, this doesn't prove anything. The Greek army did not have any equipment they could give to another group. Their morale was at its lowest and they had already left days before the fire started. The Greek army getting blamed is straight up illogical.
Then, according to the things you have told us, you should know the culprit. Who made the Armenian gangs?
The chances of us concluding is getting lower as time passes. Please continue.
In fact, the fire debate on this ferry did not just start among you. Before I joined your conversation, I was discussing with an Armenian lady inside. Like me, she will go to help his compatriots after getting off this ferry. She lost her family in the fire. I didn't feel good arguing with a lady who lost her family even though she believed Greek and Turkish soldiers were to blame. But since a decision has to be made, I would ask you to listen to her as well. This should be a fair negotiation.
Surely, there might also be a few things that we can help you with.
This journey became as interesting as a fair journey can be. Well, let's listen. I want to know who the culprit actually is.
That a plus from me as well, but I don't think that I will change my mind after the things I have witnessed.
Hello there, ma'am. Before we start, I express my condolences. Is there anything we can do for you?
My only wish is to get rid of this dark blemish on me.
I am sorry for your loss, miss. But we all want the same thing. The fact that Turks are getting blamed for such an event makes it harder for us to carry on. Izmir is our city. How could you find Turks burning down this city logical? There are various proofs and witnesses. A fact that there are many flammable and explosive materials in the Greek and the Armenian neighborhoods. The fire started in the Armenian and Greek neighborhoods. How will you justify your people?
Please, allow me to tell you my story. No one should be judged because of a crime someone else committed. I was born and grew up in these lands. Every single part of my body is filled with the air of Izmir. The rubbles you can see have become a graveyard for my family. I am not irrational enough to refuse that we have fought with Turks. But what kind of benefit would we receive by scorching our own homes? Why would a human being see death while burning to ashes suitable for their loved ones? I have lived as an honorable woman. Now I can't even find the corpse of my little girl, and I will leave these lands like my people. And what is going to happen in the lands I immigrate to? The blaze residing in my heart is way bigger than these fires. Please, do not make it worse with your statements.
This globalization is going nowhere. Look at us. What we should be thinking about is the situation of Izmir and how we are going to help the ones in need.
Everything is crystal clear as far as I'm concerned. But regardless of who set Izmir on fire, there isn't anyone who hasn't suffered because of the fire.
You're right, sir.
What do you mean, ma'am?
I'm talking about the things the Turks have done.
What do you mean by that? What kind of allegations do we have to face now? We are wasting time on these baseless allegations, like the things we have suffered were not enough.
Madam, if you are going to blame someone, be clear about it.
It's obvious that the Turks set the city on fire to hide their massacres. Why would anyone willingly burn down their neighborhood? How can you blame poor homeless people who have nowhere to run? Turks experienced many painful events with Armenians during World War I. They deliberately burned the Armenian neighborhoods to blame them.
Are you even aware of the things you have just uttered? Izmir was as important as Istanbul for the Turks. The Turks acted as peacefully as possible in the region. If they aimed to blame the Armenians, they would not have torn themselves into pieces to extinguish the fire in the Armenian neighborhoods.
Alright, that's enough. You should realize that this debate won't come to an end. Blaming each other doesn't help these poor people. The issue we need to talk about are different.
Monsieur Tallis, so how do you think Europe, especially Great Britain, will be affected by this?
That's a wonderful question. It will be wrong to evaluate such a huge destruction only with local consequences. My first observation is of course an uncontrolled and destructive migration. And what do you think?
I estimate what this fire will cost my nation and my country. Just take a guess. How much money and energy do you think a war-torn nation needs to reap such a great destruction? Moreover, what should we fight against when the international press blames us so much?
I can make a guess. So what can we do? It is necessary to think about this. Guilty or innocent, everyone who wants to save themselves must take responsibility. I seen some days get it is. On the day the fire started, a French correspondent was describing the situation at Izmir in the report he published.
What about the immigrants? There are 60,000 Greeks and Armenians who have lost their homes.
News reports talk about 300,000 homeless people. How many years will it take to establish new structures and establish social order in these lands?
Hospitals, hotels, official offices, inns, markets, while the people were suffering most miserably, all the buildings that would meet their needs were destroyed.
I believe that the aid ships coming here will be of great help.
It's not that easy, esteemed lady. No one can so easily adapt to leaving the land they are accustomed to left in ashes. How will these people adapt to the places they immigrate to?
How will they get used to the order of the other lands? People will get aggressive and resort to illegal means, driven by grief and hunger. The social disorder will cause people from different cultures to hate and approach one another with prejudice, just like an avalanche. Each emotion embittered by hatred only will give birth to a new, greater sense of hatred.
I was talking about this. Giving someone a house doesn't make the problems go away. They will have to get used to places they flee to, find a job, adapt to society, and overcome their grief. This will cost a lot, not only those who have the left, but also one who have stayed behind, and those who live in the places that they went.
Moreover, this fire will affect international relations for centuries, and it will be difficult for us to make peace with our neighbors, the Greeks. I hope that I am wrong and we can achieve peace.
The best thing that can be done is for everyone to lend a helping hand to each other, regardless of race.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. This was one of the most valuable and conceptual discussions I've had in my 8 years of journalism.
It would take a very long time for us to bind up these blues to hear this curse of flame.
Maybe some will never heal. Just take a look. It's nothing but ashes.
Yes, no one who had suffered from this fire can erase its traces and smell of smoke for centuries.
The souls of people who have perished will wander in these lands until the world comes to an end.
Some things should not be erased from one's memory. This is one of them.
Even if we want to erase it, we cannot do it, sir. Don't forget that this fire has penetrated the souls of each of us. In this city, which is a cultural mosaic, it will never be possible to build the same rich structure again, even if the physical wounds are healed. Let's hope that the people who were harmed here and lived peacefully in the past can look at each other with the same amicable eyes in the future.
Our ways separate from now on.
Then there is nothing left to do but wish everyone the great get well soon and wish them well for the future.
We wish that everyone can get over this incident in a matter of time.
Inshallah, gentlemen. May God protect us, hoping to meet in a more peaceful world where no one gets hurt.